Hey everyone, just quick announcement before I share today's episode with Dr. Scott Stoll. Dr. Stoll is doing some amazing work and working on some amazing projects, so I'm excited for him to get to share his story. But just want to take a minute to share the release of my first children's book of my Healthy Children's Book series called Maddux's Trip to the Chiropractor. It's a cute book with bright pictures that follows a toddler on her trip to the chiropractor. It shows her excitement and how she knows that it impacts her health in a positive way. And each purchase of the book will be supporting a project that I started called the Unlock Wellness Project. For each purchase of the book, we will be donating a wellness bag to a child in need. These wellness bags will include non-toxic, chemical-free essentials such as soap, shampoo, toothpaste, a toothbrush, items that a lot of the times children in tough situations don't have access to. We're also going to be shipping wellness bags to flood victims in Houston, Texas, and reaching out to victims of Hurricane Irma and Hurricane Maria as well. You can learn more about the book and the Unlock Wellness Project by going to drkaseyjohnson.com. That's DRKASEY Johnson.com. Click on the Shop tab, then click the Children's Book option. You'll be able to read a short description and even watch a short video with more information. You can also purchase the book directly on Amazon.com by searching Maddux's Trip to the Chiropractor. But I hope you guys love the book. Be sure to check out my website to learn more, and thank you so much for the support. Now it's time for today's episode. I hope you love my conversation with Dr. Scott Stoll. Welcome to the Unlock Wellness Podcast. I'm Dr. Casey and excited for today's guest. I'm here with Dr. Scott Stoll. And Dr. Stoll is a board-certified specialist in physical medicine and rehabilitation. He specializes in regenerative medicine utilizing natural treatments, diet, and lifestyle to aid the body in healing chronic diseases and injuries. Dr. Stoll co-founded the Plantrician Project, the International Plant-Based Nutrition Healthcare Conference, and the International Cardiovascular Summit. He's done so much amazing work, and I'm excited for him to get to share his own story with you guys and just share all the amazing work that he's doing. So, Dr. Stoll, thank you so much for taking time to come on. I'm really excited to have you on here.
Casey, thank you so much. I am so excited to be a part of the podcast, and I really appreciate the invitation. We're going to have a great conversation this morning. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, so Dr. Stoll, why don't we just jump into your backstory and kind of just walk me through your own wellness journey and how that really led you to where you are right now.
Yeah, thank you. You know, it's always, I love asking that question because it seems like everybody that finds their way into wellness and nutrition has an amazing story that has kind of awakened them and helped to break some of the old paradigms of healthcare that we've all kind of grown up in. And mine starts, when I was in college, I was a nutritional science major and pre-med, and went through and thought I understood nutrition. I was an athlete all the way through college and then participated in the bobsled team in the 1994 Olympics and awesome. Still thought I understood nutrition. But, looking back on it, I can't believe that the stuff I used to eat as an athlete and get away with it.
Right.
It's amazing at the Olympic Training Center, they have, it's food that you can access from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And they have ice cream and Dove bars and chocolate shakes.
So it's basically like a cruise ship, right? Like you just get all day, right. Whatever you want.
That's right. It's, looking back on it, you always, you kind of have a misconception that athletes are really healthy and they take great care of their bodies. And in many cases they do, but the nutritional aspect is really lacking. And, it's oftentimes you're successful in spite of your diet, but not successful because of your diet.
Right.
So then I started medical school and went through med school and residency. And I began practicing and doing exactly what I was taught to do, making, diagnoses and writing prescriptions and doing procedures, prescribing physical therapy. And I noticed a trend in the first couple of years of my practice that my patients would come in and with a smile or a laughter, they would say, "Hey, Dr. Stoll, can't you help me? I'm falling apart." And then we would go to a family get-together, and, as a doctor, whenever you go to a family get-together, there's usually a line of people that want to ask you about their ailments.
Right.
And they would all joke and say, "Hey, I'm falling apart. Can you help me?" And so my wife used to joke, we should just set up a little desk in the corner at the family get-togethers, and you can take a number and go see Scott sometime. So there was this trend of these people joking and laughing that they were falling apart. And, based on our training, you kind of expect that that's the natural consequences of living life and aging, that you get these diseases, you get older, you fall apart. There was just a study out this last week that says more than half of Americans have high blood pressure. And we all learned in our training that as you get older, your arteries stiffen and you have high blood pressure, and inevitably you're going to have to take medications. So that was my belief system. And there was a day in my practice, a woman came in, she was in her early 60s, and she was sitting on the exam table. And she said, "Dr. Stoll, can't you help me? I'm falling apart." And it was just one of those moments. I asked the right question. I said to her, "Well, tell me, what is falling apart, and what does that mean to you?" And, oftentimes as doctors, we're already anticipating the answer to the question. And I had her past medical history in front of me, all of her medical problems and cancer and diabetes and her medications and side effects. And I was expecting her to start down the list. But she started at a very unexpected place that left me feeling very vulnerable. She said, "My marriage is falling apart because my husband is exhausted taking care of me. My relationship with my grandchildren is falling apart because I haven't been able to travel to see them for 3 years. Our finances are falling apart because we're facing financial bankruptcy due to our medical bills. My friendships are falling apart because my friends are so tired coming around to talk to me, and all I do is talk about my health problems." She said, "My spiritual life is falling apart because I can't go to church. I just can't. I can't expect to sit there for any period of time." And she said, "My whole life is falling apart. What can you do to help me?" And as you know, in our training, we're never taught how to help somebody put their lives back together again, especially that social, relational, and even financial aspects of their life that were impacted by their diseases.
Right.
And so I left that room feeling, very impotent at that time. I didn't have an answer for her. I didn't know what to do. And it left me with this giant question in my mind: what am I going to do to help the next person that comes to my office and asks for the same kind of help? So I started a personal research project, and I started to try and uncover some of the science behind helping somebody actually put their life back together again. I studied age management medicine because I thought surely these guys have the answer. And you see that guy in the in-flight magazines that is like 70 years old with the body of a 25-year-old. So I thought they must have the answer. So I actually went through the entire training program. And I realized that it's very expensive. There's a lot of side effects for doing those hormone replacement therapies.
Right.
And it's not something that the average person can do. So I went back to some of my nutritional background, and I started by reading diet books. I thought, well, certainly somebody that's written a diet book has to have the answer.
Just like
and
bad
I read
diet
Atkins
books.
to Zone.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yeah. Atkins to Zone, Sugar Busters, all
Right.
those. Yeah. So I read them, and when I finished, I was more confused than when I started. Is it high fat, low carb, high carb, more meat, less meat? And none of them really addressed the falling apart question. They all addressed weight loss. And then you look at the research on weight loss, and you see that, there was a large meta-analysis that looked at more than 900 weight loss studies. And they found that, only 15% of people were able to keep 20 pounds off in 5 years. And so, those weight loss studies are really not the answer. And so I went back to just reading some articles online, Google Scholar, PubMed, and I started to see the trend that the more whole plant foods that people ate, the healthier their bodies and the normal their body weight. And I saw that, some of the blue zones, the Loma Lindas and the Okinawans, the more basic their diet, and the diet that was composed of whole plant foods, the healthier they were, and they had long, healthy lives. And I thought to myself, is it really this easy? And
Right.
So I went and I spent some time with some people like Dr. Furman that were doing this, and I saw that their patients were getting healthier as they got older and discontinuing medications. So I changed the way I practiced. I started using my prescription pad to write recipes for smoothies and
That's
breakfast, lunch,
awesome.
and dinner, and saw incredible changes in a very short period of time. And I realized that, food is far more powerful than I was ever taught or ever believed, and that it really was this simple. At least the prescription was simple. The application is sometimes challenging for a number of reasons, but the basic prescription is beautiful because it's not patented by anyone. It's not a supplement that's owned by someone. It's available to most people, and hopefully more people around the world. And it's one of those fundamental things in life that can bring transformational change in a very short period of time.
Absolutely. And Dr. Stoll, how did that affect your own diet? Because what did your own diet look like as you're going through all of these books, and obviously you're seeing all of these different things that counteract with each other? Like, how did your own diet look like as you progressed through this whole journey?
Yeah, it's interesting. Coming out of the Olympics and, sports, I was a big believer that meat was really important, and I needed meat to be strong and to maintain my muscle mass. So I had meat at least twice a day, chicken predominantly, but I tried to eat meat at least twice a day because I thought that's what I really needed. And, looking back, I still drank milk. I would have chocolate milk. I would have a sweet every day. And, you kind of rationalize it and easily justify it because you say, well, I'm not overweight. I'm still strong. So this is fine. You kind of justify your food based upon, belief systems, mindsets, or even an appearance. Now, it's interesting, when I was in med school, my second year in med school, my wife and I were married, and she came to me and she said, I've been reading. I think we should really transition over to like a vegan vegetarian diet. And so back then, coming out of the Olympics, I said, wow, I don't think I can do that. I don't want to be thin and wimpy. That was my mindset at that time. So, actually my wife then was way ahead of me. She was probably 8 years ahead of me. And if I had learned that lesson back then to listen to my wife, I would have been much further ahead. So
definitely. That's cool. And you were just talking about med school, just to kind of just dive back for just a second. Like, what did your nutrition classes look like for you? Because most people say it was either not there or it was an elective. And I'm always curious to ask different doctors what it was like for them, because most of the time you hear just, we didn't have it. So what was it like for you?
Yeah, looking back after I had come to this realization, I saw that in medical school, I had about 4 to 6 hours of nutritional education. But it was really nutrition for, TPN, ICU, the basic kind of medical nutrition. But I didn't receive any nutritional training that would help me to understand what the body really needs and what maintains the health of the body, and never had a concept that food and nutrition could reverse disease. So, looking back, I didn't receive any valuable nutritional guidance for my own life or for my patients beyond just keeping somebody alive in an ICU.
Right. Yeah. And that's what you hear most of the time, and super unfortunate. I think over time, hopefully it will evolve, or just additional training will be made available. But we can dive into the different things you're working on in a little bit. But you were walking us through your own diet transition. So I'll let you jump back into that.
Yeah. So it's, once we finally made that transition, we were eating, looking back, pretty much a standard Western diet, probably less processed food because we were trying to buy organic meat and some organic raw milk. We were, eating, more plants, but it was still a lot of processed food and standard American diet. And our children, we had really 2 children. I have 6 now, but 2 of our children up through probably age 6, 7 were eating that diet, and they would get sick and, they had ear infections. So when we made that transition and we finally recognized what we needed to do, it seemed like a radical transition for us to get rid of all the meat, to get rid of the raw dairy and cheese and the processed food and the sugar. And we made that as a family first, and we saw incredible transformation in our children. One of my children had dark circles under his eyes, and we realized it was from the dairy. It was the raw dairy that we had been led to believe was really important for children to grow and get their calcium and their protein.
Right.
But as soon as we took that away, all of the congestion, the dark circles, any ear infections or sore throats that my children suffered were immediately gone and never came back. And, here we are 15 years later, and none of my children have had ear infections, strep throat. If they get a sniffle that lasts 2 days, none of them have had to be on antibiotics. They're all strong and healthy and well.
Yeah, and Dr. Stoll, I've seen the exact same thing. My daughter will be 2 in January, and yeah, she had a small cough for a few days when she was 2 months old, but that was the last time. You don't hear a toddler that's just never sick or just doesn't get ear infections or, like you were saying, strep throat. It's just really cool to see.
Oh, and it's so important for their development. They are so susceptible to disruptions of their microbiome from those antibiotics, and it can really set them up for a lifetime of problems. One of our neighbors, we moved in and he was 5, and we saw his life because they drank a lot of dairy and ate a lot of processed food. He had, multiple infections every year, multiple rounds of antibiotics, eventually developed reflux disease as a teenager, was on, anti-reflux medications, proton pump inhibitors. I had a host of other issues and actually just was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And I just think back, to that early foundation in his life, and I imagine how different it could have been if he had been on a plant-based diet, because I see the contrast between my son, who's his age, and now, our friend who is 20 on, insulin and working through so many challenges with multiple medications as a young man.
Yeah, no, it's incredibly sad. Yeah, it's really hard when obviously I'm sure the same thing with you, you have friends that haven't really looked into it yet or just not there yet. And then they have kids and you see different sicknesses and it hurts because you want to help, but they're at the point where they're at right now. And I totally respect the process. So, but it is hard.
Yeah, it really is. We try to love people until the place where they're open to receive information.
Definitely.
Because you really have to be at a place to receive and have a willingness to make a change, because diet is so deeply rooted in so many aspects of our life.
Yeah.
But it's like this, the research shows that one round of antibiotics injures the microbiome for a year, and it takes the microbiome almost a year, the gut bacteria, to recover after that one episode of antibiotics. And for these children that are on several rounds.
Yep. Yeah. I was going to say, probably an average child probably takes an antibiotic. I don't know, Dr. Stoll, what do you think? Every 5 months, every 4, maybe more?
Yeah.
If they have chronic ear infection.
That's right.
I'm not sure the exact average, but I would say something like that. So you never have the chance to fully recover, and most aren't taking a probiotic or taking the necessary steps to kind of fight that too. So it's just kind of a recipe for disaster.
It really is. It sets them up for a lifetime of struggles.
Yeah.
And, being tied back into a healthcare system that never solves their problems and just leaves them feeling more frustrated.
Yeah. And how was that for you? I know obviously, you're taught what to write prescriptions for, and obviously, if it's a life-threatening thing, you have to take those steps until you can figure out what's causing it and get to the root cause. But did you have any issues when you were writing medications before you knew what you knew? You felt like it was wrong? You were kind of talking about that lady a little bit, but you thought that there could be something else out there, but it was just, you know what I mean? Just kind of like a conflict within yourself. There could be a better way, but you're not really sure because you weren't taught it.
Yeah, I think just based upon the side effect profiles that you learn on these medications, and knowing that, with polypharmacy, we really don't understand the long-term consequences of, 3-4 medications in the human body. I think there's always a little hesitancy to add more medications to somebody's life, and a little bit of concern as to, some of the side effects that people may experience. And, early on in your career, when you start writing prescriptions and then patients call back and they have sometimes really profound side effects, it does cause a little bit of hesitancy and internal conflict to write those medications again. And, but, I didn't know what else to do. I hadn't been trained in any other
Right.
methods. Eventually I did seek out other ways to try and correct some of the problems for the musculoskeletal system with some regenerative injections, because I wanted to avoid pain medications and realized the long-term consequences of those. But, it's really hard as a physician. You feel trapped sometimes because there's that, like you said, an internal conflict that happens, and but you don't know what else to do to help your patients, and you're kind of in a system and feel stuck.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. And I know with the work you're doing, like you're trying to change that, and you're trying to reach doctors all over all over the country, all over the world, and just teach them the steps to really implement that. So was the Plantrician Project, was that the first project you kind of jumped into, or do you want to kind of walk through the different projects that you've been a part of, and how you're using those to really kind of just change the game a little bit?
Yeah. So, the Plantrician Project really evolved out of, kind of the work that I've done with health immersions. I served on the medical and scientific advisory board for quite a number of years at Whole Foods, and was asked eventually by Whole Foods to run one of their 4 health immersions, where they identify some of their most unhealthy team members, their employees, and they send them for a week to learn about how to take care of their bodies and reverse disease. So it's myself, Rip Esselstyn, Joel Furman, and John McDougall run their health immersions. And we've been doing that for about 9 years now, and it has taught me the incredible power of food to reverse disease even in a week. And it has given me such an amazing view of food that you can abuse your body unknowingly for most people for decades. And in a week, lots of the side effects of that diet-borne illness are improved or reversed in just a week.
It's so crazy.
We actually we had to hire a doctor to be there during the week while I was speaking to be able to titrate people's medications during the week because they change so rapidly.
Wow. And Dr. Stoll, I had a few months ago, I had Mylan Ross on, and he was part of your program, right? So if you want to kind of talk about that a little bit. I mean, his story is amazing. I mean, I'm sure seeing stories like that, I can't imagine how you must feel when you see stories like that, because it's life-changing.
It is life-changing. That's what, brings so much hope around this message, is that you see somebody's life completely transformed, and, the life that was falling apart is actually regenerated, and many of those things are made new, and they get a whole new lease on life. And Mylan was one of those great stories, and we've had so many through the years. But he came to our health immersion, and at his peak, he was 518 pounds. He was on 12 medications, using pain medications every day because he had, his lateral femoral cutaneous nerve was pinched, and it's called neuralgia paresthetica. He had diabetic neuropathy. Sick, depressed, hopeless. He actually, in 2009, had a heart attack driving his son to school and died, and they revived him. Was a tobacco abuser. And so he had lots and lots of issues around his life. And he had taken a job at Whole Foods to get health insurance to pay for his medications and his wife's medications for her multiple sclerosis. And was shortly thereafter made aware of the health immersions and had an opportunity to come spend a week with us in Florida. One of the early parts of the immersion, we talk about emotional eating and food addiction, because we've seen that is such a big part of the food cycle for people. And Mylan recognized at the immersion that he had unresolved bitterness, anger, resentment towards his mother for something that happened years ago. And then he had profound guilt that he didn't resolve it before she passed away. And so this drove him into kind of an eating cycle to pacify that emotional pain. And he had been on diets before and lost 100 pounds. But because that emotional pain was still inside of his life, he would eat to comfort himself, and food became his counselor. And he would gain the weight back and more. And so he was really in a place where his life was falling apart and he was stuck. So during the immersion, he finally became aware that he had this emotional burden, and he describes it like this heavy backpack that he was wearing on a daily basis. And he was able to come up in front of the group, and he forgave his mother, he forgave himself, he released that full burden, He says he released it to God, and God took the backpack off. And he said he felt so much better after just releasing that heavy burden that he had been carrying. Mm-hmm. And that really then enabled him to go forward. And he likes to say he released the weight. So he released eventually over 300 pounds because he wasn't carrying the emotional burden anymore. And in the process of gaining health, every other aspect of his life changed. His relationship with his son changed. It went from a place where his son would say, Dad, drop me off a block from school because the kids are teasing me about your weight, to now his son says, Dad, can you coach my team and take me to school because everybody thinks that you're a superhero. That's awesome. His relationship with his wife changed. Her MS symptoms improved greatly, and she was able to discontinue her medications. He had new job opportunities, new relationship opportunities. Everything in his life transformed. And really, the genesis moment for him was that emotional response to forgiveness and releasing unforgiveness. So he and I wrote a book because I really wanted people to see the importance of that emotional link to food and to eating. And he's a great example. And we have so many others. I'm just thinking, I'll tell you one other quick story. Her name is Kelly. She came, and she had such a wonderful story because she was another young mother, 3 children. And before she came to the immersion, she said that she would wake up in the morning and think, I just don't know how I'm going to make it through this day. And I don't know how I'm going to make it through my life taking care of my children. She too was depressed. She had autoimmune diseases. She didn't feel well. She had pain all over. Her husband had irritable bowel disease and was thinking about going in for surgery to have a resection of his colon. So their whole life was upside down. And she too came, and she didn't have quite the profound emotional response, but she saw that she was kind of eating emotionally. She transitioned her diet, and in 6 months, she was thin and vibrant and healthy, and all of her autoimmune diseases had resolved, all of her pain had resolved, and her husband's irritable bowel had resolved, and he canceled his surgery, and they did a 5K run together. So, and everything changed in her life as well.
That's so great. I mean, I can't imagine all of the stories that you do have from that. It's just, that's amazing that, Whole Foods even has that program. You don't hear that from other places.
Yeah, it's truly an investment in their employees. It really is remarkable that they pay for that for their employees. And I really give them a lot of honor and appreciation for stepping out and taking care of the people that are working in their stores. Yeah,
definitely. And you were saying that kind of started the whole thing. And then how did that lead to the other projects that you started working on?
Yeah, so I was having dinner one evening with Tom Dunham, one of my partners in the Plantrician Project and in the health immersions, and we were just reflecting on, the many years that it took me to finally figure out a lot of this stuff on my own. And I said to him at the dinner table, I said, you know what, Tom, we really need to start a conference to help physicians and healthcare practitioners, learn this information in a much shorter period of time, so that they can start transitioning their own practices. And Tom said, sure, let's do it. So we had no idea what we're getting ourselves into.
Right.
But we started this, we started the International Plant-Based Nutrition Healthcare Conference. And we were blessed and saved by a third partner that joined us midway through that first year, Susan Benegas, who's an amazing, wonderful partner that has great ability to market and pull things together. So the 3 of us launched our first conference down in Naples, 2013, and we had, a good showing of almost 200 people that came, and out of that we started the not-for-profit called the Plantrician Project, which is designed to educate, equip, empower, and inspire physicians to use whole plant foods as a pillar of their practices. And we just finished our 5th conference this last fall in Anaheim, and we had 1,000 healthcare practitioners from 25 countries. We actually sold out. So it's exciting to me because I see that, each of those people can go back to their practices, and there are so many Kellydys and Mylans that come to see them every day that have the same complaints, patients that I see every day, and that they have an answer for them now. They can say, yes, I can help you, and let me show you how to put your life back together again. So
and Dr. Stoll,
that's my real passion.
It's giving them the steps for real people. That way, when they go back, it's not like, okay, I learned a lot of great stuff at this conference. now what? You guys are really giving them the tools to go back and like just jump into it and start giving them a game plan.
Yeah, and that's one of our goals is to develop tools and to help practitioners help their patients. We've developed quick start guides, and we have a pediatric quick start guide coming out just this fall. We had this amazing group of pediatricians that helped us develop a pediatric quick start guide. We're trying to really do as much as we can to help the practitioner help the patients.
That's awesome. And what do you guys have anything happening like in the future that you want to share with people? I don't know if you personally have anything that's going on this year that you want to share.
Yeah, we have our conference, which will be next fall, September 23rd. So it's the International Plant-Based Nutrition Healthcare Conference, pbnhc.com. And it will be an amazing conference. We try to bring in new speakers every year that will help further develop and help us to understand how plant-based nutrition works in the body, how it reverses disease. And then we also like to focus on the application in healthcare. So it's an amazing conference. And so many physicians and healthcare practitioners will say to us, I've never been to a conference like this. It feels like more of a spiritual experience because it's so many like-minded individuals coming together, and everybody is so enthusiastic and excited and hopeful. And I think that's what you feel at the conference, just joy and hope that you don't feel at a traditional healthcare conference. So that's in the fall. We are developing a certification program for healthcare practitioners, which will help really dive deeper into the science and create a continuing medical education program that will allow them to show a certification. We have a lot of other things coming out of the Plantrician Project in the next year, and a number of other tools. One of the exciting projects that we're starting is a partnership with the Rodale Institute, which is the leader in organic agriculture. And, they've really been a leader in what's called regenerative agriculture, the idea that we can regenerate the land and the agriculture and create sustainable plans for food production, into the future. So in doing so, we kind of have thought of ourselves in the Plantrician Project as like regenerative healthcare. We're helping people understand how to regenerate in the people they're seeing as clients or patients, which regenerates the practitioner and their clinic, which ultimately regenerates healthcare and provides enough money to take care of everyone when we're not spending, 75% of our healthcare dollars on lifestyle diseases. So What we're trying to do is build a health education center on the Rodale farm, which is here in Pennsylvania, which would be about 25,000 square feet, to help people understand all of the science and linkages between healthy soil, which equals healthy plant, which equals a healthy person, which equals a healthy environment or a world. And it's, I think, when we fully understand the linkage of food production and food consumption, we can really bring an amazing transformation to our world. So that's going to be, we're actually launching that and hopefully opening the center by spring of 2019. And you'll be able to find information on the plantricianproject.org website. So that's going to be exciting. We also have some immersions coming up. Mylan and I are going to do a 3-day health immersion in Phoenix, Arizona, to try and help people. They're called the Change Immersions. It's changeimmersions.com. And so we're going to do several of those 3-day weekend immersions and some week-long immersions to provide more opportunities for more people to learn this information and experience how good you can feel when you make a healthy lifestyle transition.
That's cool. So it's just like a smaller version for people that don't work at Whole Foods and get that, get the benefits of that. So it's just like a smaller version open to anybody.
That's exactly right. It is. Cool. We wanted to create a lower price point for people and, a shorter time frame so that people don't have to necessarily take off a week and they can join us on a Friday night and a Saturday and a Sunday and get a lot of that information, have some really good food, a lot of fun, and learn how to transform their lives by just changing their plate.
That's awesome. No, I love that. That's amazing. And Dr. Stoll, if you want to go through and just give the best social media places to follow you and your projects and also any websites, so they're all in one place. But what would be the best way for people to follow you on social media?
Sure. You can go, our not-for-profit is the plantricianproject.org. and that will link you out to the conferences that we're holding and all of the resources. drscottstoll.com has a lot of all the other resources and websites for immersions and some of the books that I've written. You can find me on Twitter and on Facebook, just Dr. Scott Stoll. And those are both places to follow many of the things that we're doing. Changeimmersions.com is the website to find all of the immersions that we're going to be doing in the next year. And we hope that anybody listening would want to come and join us. We have a great time. We make it a lot of fun, and we make sure that the food is really good, because that has to be the foundation. It's not just twigs and sticks, we try to make sure it's absolutely delicious. Right. So yeah, changeimmersions.com.
Right. That's awesome. Not just iceberg lettuce all weekend. You're going to feed them.
Yeah, exactly. Iceberg lettuce and balsamic. Yeah,
exactly.
It's a lot more delicious than that.
Right.
You have some really good desserts too. You have to have some great desserts to fill those holes in.
That's awesome. And then Dr. Stoll, just closing question that I ask every guest, but if you just had one piece of advice for the audience, maybe it was your biggest takeaway through learning everything that you've learned, but if you just had one piece of advice to give, what would it be?
That's a great question, Casey. I would say to people that, there is hope. I think a lot of times healthcare steals hope and it steals joy. And even though doctors may steal hope and may steal joy with their words, just remember that there is hope. And you can find restored joy and restored hope and a transformed life by simply changing what's on your plate. And I like to always tell people that when you're making a lifestyle change, to give yourself grace and love in the process. When you make a change like this, it's important to remember that there is no failure. Sometimes things don't work out. You may make a meal that's not great. You may have an unhealthy meal, but that's okay. It's part of the process of transformation. And, I think we have become so engrossed with this idea of success and failure through the diet industry that when we don't do well or we make a bad choice, immediately we think that we failed. And when we think that we failed, we start to condemn ourselves and judge ourselves and tell ourselves we don't have enough willpower or self-will or something's wrong with us. And that leads to that downward spiral and eventually abandoning something that could really be beneficial. So I like to have people change their mindset and change their belief system, that it's a journey and it's a transformative journey, and there is no failure. If you don't make a choice that's the best choice, it's okay, because you can always have the ability to make a better choice the next time or the next meal or the next bite. And you just continue to work forward and give yourself enough love and grace that you're going to be successful. And so I like to really encourage people along that line, that it is possible, and it's through love and grace towards yourself and love and grace towards others that transformation occurs.
Definitely. And that's perfect. I love that. And Dr. Stoll, thank you so much for taking time to come on. I loved having you, and just keep up the amazing work that you're doing. And I hope to see you at a conference soon.
Oh, thank you, Casey. It has been such an honor and a joy. I really appreciate the invitation, and I wish you all the best and in all that you're doing to spread the word and to take care of so many people and inspire so many people with this podcast. And I just wish everybody on the podcast a wonderful holiday season and all the best. God bless. Thank you so much, Casey.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you loved my conversation with Dr. Stoll. He's doing such positive work, and I'm excited for you guys to follow him on social media and just check out all of the projects that he's working on. You can find the social media links and the websites that we talked about in the episode in the show notes, but you can also find them on my website as well at drkaseyjohnson.com. That's DRKASEY Johnson.com. Click on the Listen tab. Then from there, you'll be able to see all of the past guests that have come on the Unlock Wellness podcast, read a little bit about each guest, and be able to click on their social media links, websites, all of that. So all of Dr. Stoll's information can be found on my site as well. If you guys loved today's episode with Dr. Stoll, be sure to jump onto iTunes, subscribe, and write a review. It really helps me out a lot, and I really appreciate all of the feedback and support. And like I spoke about in the intro, also be sure to check out my first children's book of my Healthy Children's Book series called Maddux's Trip to the Chiropractor. Each purchase of the book supports the Unlock Wellness Project, which applies a wellness bag to a child in need for each book purchased. You can learn more about the book and the Unlock Wellness Project on my website as well at drcaseyjohnson.com. Click on the Shop tab, then choose the children's book option. You'll be able to read a short description and even watch a short video to learn more. If you do purchase the book, be sure to share it on social media using the hashtag UWProject. I'll repost it and give you a shout out on the podcast. But I hope you guys loved the book. Thank you so much for the support, and I hope you loved today's episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in.